Since I was born white and since I became a Republican, the Democrats have told me I'm a racist.
So you've been called a racist since you were born, or since you became a Republican? Or you were born a Republican? It's been a while, familia, since I've seen somebody as blatantly anti-black as this creator. So just a heads up, familia, because it keeps getting worse.
Me, I'm a racist.
That's it. It's not that. They don't want to get to know me. They don't care what I say. They don't care if I call
every single black person the most amazing thing that ever happened since sliced bread. I wish that people would have that same energy to stop stealing from our communities.
Yeah, stopping stealing would be great. If people would actually work for a living, if people would actually work for their things and not go steal, which, by the way, is against the...
Those videos were responsible for a very racist video she made that's now disappeared from the internet, but somebody luckily recorded it.
People in Chicago stealing.
People obviously not very happy with her comments, and instead she doubled down, made a bunch of videos following up, and kept posting monkey videos, seemingly to get back at the people that were upset about it. Yesterday she posted one more video that honestly makes it even worse, with a bunch of clips in it of monkeys. Very bizarre, please watch.
Being censored for speaking facts.
No.
Start acting like a normal human being, like an actual human being, and you will get respect. If you start acting like certain types of animals, well, that's what you're going to be called from me. And I'm not going to apologize. If you want to stop acting like that certain animal, then we'll talk. Announcing that I am starting a Rumble account because I'm very tired of being censored simply because I'm white. I'm talking about facts and people put the R word in front of everything. Oh, some communities doing some horrible things, and just because they are a certain race or color or ethnicity, it's not okay for them to be covered up anymore. But guess what, guys? You ain't gonna get an apology from me. That's not what I do. Okay, I don't apologize for things that are actually true, because that's how it goes. If you want respect from me, if you want respect for the rest of your Americans, stop stealing. Stop acting like that. Stop acting like mob people and going and robbing and looting half of Chicago and Atlanta and everywhere else.
Do you all feel as gross as I do after watching that video? Lady, nobody's calling you a racist just for being Republican and white. They're calling you that because of your actions. In another video, she talks about her First Amendment rights, how she only talks about things that are important to her, that she doesn't believe that people should apologize for everything they say. What I want to make clear is that freedom of speech does not mean freedom from consequences. And if you wanted attention, I think it's time we let you have it. To be clear, she does not represent all Latinos, but there is a subset of our community that continues to push forward white supremacy ideals, and putting down people because of the color of their skin is a great example of that. I have a lot more to say, but familia, what do you all think? I'm still shocked that 24,000 people would give somebody like her attention. La mera verdad, me das vergüenza.
Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. This is your presenter Eugene Doc Stories, and I hope that you're doing fine wherever you are today. You'll excuse me, I have some tonsils, but I gotta do what I gotta do, you know. So today's discussion is about Latinos, especially the Latino community. And I know we have been having the issues of anti-blackness between inside the Latino community. And I know, and probably this will leave you with a question, because we are counted as minorities. We black people, Latinos, and especially research as Hispanics and black people generally, we share a number of similarities when it comes to especially people who are in the United States. But why amongst ourselves? Why are we seeing this internal hatred, especially from Hispanic people? And I'm talking about this because I've had a lot of complaints, especially from Afro-Latinos trying to say that their brothers who are Hispanic, some of them are members of their families, some of them are people that they know, some of them are their friends, some of them are their schoolmates, because these are people that they share their day-to-day experience with. So with this being said, it means that they face racism, or they face anti-blackness on a broad daylight. This is something that which really happens to them. And I know you'll ask yourself, why are we seeing the struggles between Latinos and black people, especially Afro-Latinos, especially the ones in the United States? So welcome to today's presentation. We're going to be seeing some videos which represents what really happens, the real image of our not Afro-Latinos, but how Hispanic people treat their brothers and sisters, especially Afro-Latinos, because I believe that this is a shared message that we people from the black community, especially person who is endowed with a platform to talk about this, I feel like this is the best place to come and talk about this, because it is important. If I fail to say this and a person is being affected, there is no need for this platform. But if we can address these issues, because these are some of the issues that still shows you that these are the effects of racism and the effects of white supremacy, because Hispanics, they see themselves more as white as compared to their counterparts who are Afro-Hispanics, black Hispanics. So we've seen a couple of struggles between black people, especially Afro-Latinos and Hispanics, or Latinos generally. And you ask yourself, why are we seeing these struggles? Why are the number of struggles increasing, especially even if we leave the Afro-Latinos, even if the Black Americans themselves or African Americans themselves who have experienced racism from Hispanic people. However, I would like to note also that not all Hispanics act in this way or portray some racial behaviors, but I know that we have a section of people who does things rightly, but we can't close our eyes to the people or the complaints of black people, Hispanics, or other races who still complain about Hispanic racism. So with me today, I have videos that I want to play to you that will authenticate the message that I'm trying to say, and you'll see the interaction of Latinos, and you'll see the complaints of black people in regards to what really is happening in the Latino community. I hope that we get to learn, and this video is generally for educational purposes, because the presentation that I'm going to share is going to show why are we having struggles between people from the Latino community. Why are we having struggles between Latino people, Afro-Hispanics, especially Afro-Hispanics, Black Americans? Why are we still these back and forth disagreements, back and forth conflicts between Latinos and Black people? So join me in today's presentation. As you all know, this is your presenter, Eugene Talk Stories. And if you're watching this video for the first time, I'll ask you to subscribe to the channel, join our membership, and really get what we can offer you. Until then, let's dive right into the video. I'll be back with my commentary telling you why are we envisioning these struggles, yet we share some struggles as people who are considered as minority. So I'll be back with my commentary. Let's dive right into it.
Here's a little lesson for all the Americans who do not seem to understand.
But why would some Latinos want to associate themselves with racist people who target them for violence and regard them as inferior? The reasons are as varied as humans are complex. A big reason is power. The concept of white supremacy could be an expression of what subgroup is powerful, and the attraction to white dominance is really an attraction to power, or believing that they can be protected from these groups. Regardless, this is what is key in all of this. Because the government tends to look at ideology as the driver and has social media monitoring programs to examine what people are saying, white supremacists who do not fit the profile that law enforcement might be looking for could slip through the cracks. Instead, the government must understand criminality, including the ease with which people can acquire extremely deadly weapons. We must establish a regulatory process that actually works and start gathering the data of all these white supremacist crimes around the country. Then we can see the connections between them and how they may be related to an ongoing criminal conspiracy that's continuing to perpetuate violence.
It's true. Black people will be discriminated against in a Latin American country. If you're leaving America to get away from discrimination and you're moving to a Latin American country thinking that you're not going to be discriminated against, you're wrong. I've been hearing a lot about people that have moved to Mexico and are complaining that they're being discriminated against in Mexico. Let me tell you something. Mexico discriminates against their own Mexican people that are darker shade than the rest of them. in Mexico, there's a lot of states that have very fair skin and blue eyes people. The people that have indigenous features, the very dark skin, the black hair, are discriminated against. So you coming to live to Mexico and think that you're not going to be discriminated against is a fallacy. This is not just in Mexico. It happens everywhere in Latin America. Black people are discriminated against. In Honduras, there's an entire community of Garifunas. And Garifunas have been in Honduras for hundreds of years. And to this day, they discriminate against them. They remove their land. Some of them even get murdered. It's a battle Garifunas have gone through for decades with Honduras, because Honduras to this day does not recognize Garifunas as part of being part of Honduras. And so I grew up looking at Garifunas as if they were subculture, subhuman. I'm telling you, you think that you're leaving the US and moving to a Latin American country to escape racism. You're not escaping racism. And you need to understand that that's just the way things are. And it's very acceptable. Those of you who are coming on TikTok complaining that they're in Mexico and that they are embracing the Mexican culture and why are they being discriminated against, that is why. Mexico people discriminate against their own. What do you think it's going to happen when you're there? In fact, in Mexico, if you don't have light skin and blue eyes, first of all, look at the telenovelas. You tell me, what do you see in telenovelas? You're only going to see beautiful people with light skin and blue eyes. You're going to see some indigenous people. The vast majority of the roles they give the indigenous actors is of the maid, is of, it's never the pretty woman. Yeah. How many actors do you know in Mexico that are in a telenovela and they happen to be black? Just look at the telenovelas and you tell me how many indigenous actors and actresses you're going to see in those telenovelas. It's the reality in Mexico, and you need to understand that. You're not escaping racism by moving to a Latin American country.
Important challenge for racial justice that we face in our society today that frequently gets overlooked is the anti-Black bias that exists in communities themselves considered ethnic and racial minorities. Indeed, the conundrum of how anti-Black violence can still be so pervasive decades after the advancements and achievements of the civil rights movement cannot be readily understood nor addressed with the traditional sole focus on white Anglo individuals. In the language of the U.S. Census Bureau, non-Hispanic whites are presently only about 57.8% of the population and declining in numbers. This means that the ongoing upkeep and silent acceptance of anti-Blackness implicates many other racial and ethnic groups. Exploring Latino complicity in anti-Blackness is particularly helpful. As a multi-hued ethnic group, Latinos are often viewed as free of racism, or at the very least, its most exclusionary forms. Examining how anti-Blackness still does manage to manifest itself amongst the racially mixed rainbow of Latinos is a powerful illustration of how people of color themselves can fortify racism. The January 6th terrorist attack on the U.S. Capitol included several Latino members of the white supremacist group Proud Boys and their chairman, Cuban-American Enrique Tarrio. Just as the white supremacist violence in Charlottesville back in 2017 also included Latino attackers. The Southern Poverty Law Center has noticed that there is an increasing trend of more Latinos joining white supremacist hate groups. And yet, Latino white supremacists are not the only problem. Anti-blackness is also manifested in Latino communities against Afro-Latinos, African Americans, and other people of African descent in a myriad of contexts, such as the rental and purchase of homes, educational settings, the workplace, public spaces of leisure, and the criminal justice system. Examining Latino agency in anti-blackness helps us better understand the complexities of racism and what is needed to be more effective in an increasingly racially diverse world. Excavating the otherwise silenced voices of the Afro-Latino and African-American victims of Latino anti-blackness from the case files of discrimination charges is an important endeavor. When we examine, for example, how discrimination claims of Latino anti-blackness arise, two central patterns become evident. First, Latino anti-blackness is more prevalent and serious in its consequences than many commentators in politics and the media care to admit. Second, the ability to identify and address Latino anti-blackness is hampered by the notion that Latinos cannot be prejudiced or racist simply by virtue of being Latino. For example, when an African American man wanted to rent an apartment in the suburban community of Smithtown, New York, it was a Latino homeowner who refused to consider his application. This Latino landlord instead chose to wait 3 more months for a non-Black applicant to surface. Yet a jury was persuaded that no racial discrimination had occurred, due to the fact that the owner was a Brazilian American who denied harboring racial bias because she was of mixed race heritage and numerous of her Brazilian relatives had Black and Indian ancestry. This Latinos can't be prejudiced defense to racism is something that needs to be called out and removed from the legal enforcement of anti-discrimination laws. Afro-Latinos and African Americans suffer from acts of discrimination at the hands of Latinos who claim that their racially mixed culture immunizes them from being racist. In turn, the public ignorance about Latino anti-Blackness undermines our ability to fully address the interwoven complexities of U.S. racism in developing public policies and enforcing anti-discrimination law. Judges and juries can be taught to desist from being distracted by the "I can't be racist, I'm Latino" defense to accusations of discrimination. Dismantling racism in the United States requires that every component of its structures be taken apart, even the ones articulated in Spanish.
Tú como negro latino tienes dos problemas. Primero, eres negro, se te discriminan por negro. Y segundo, eres latino y te discriminan por latino. Eso es doble minoría.
Yo dije, esta nariz, estos labios que tengo yo, I'm ugly. ¿Sabes que yo era? Porque yo pensaba que yo era feo.
Tuve una compañera de trabajo que me enteré que a mi espalda se expresaba de mí como mona, la mona. ¿Sabes qué es lo más triste? Que ella era una latina.
I know I always stress to my family whenever they say something like, Julissa, tú y eso moreno. And I'm like, we are the morenos.
Your parents are instilling in you that these European features are the most beautiful thing. The standard of beauty for them is blonde hair and blue eyes.
So, in as much as we are seeing the forth and back struggles between Latino people and African Americans, Black Americans, Afro-Latinos. And I know that slave trade really happened and these people went into these places. And I know a lot really happened and people integrated. And we have mixed people. We have Afro-Latinos. We have Latinos themselves. And generally people in the Latino community. But why are we today still experiencing the same struggles? Because I've heard Black Americans complaining about this. I've heard especially Afro-Latinos complaining about this, especially people who have family members within the Latino community. They could be their uncle, they could be their cousin, maybe some their brothers, So there is outcry of people who are complaining about Hispanic racism. So I'm here to address this issue, and my presentation on this will be why are we seeing increased struggles between Latino people, Afro-Latino people, and generally African Americans, because this discussion is something that we really need to talk about. So first thing that I would like to recognize under this presentation is there are factors that really comes into play, and the first one is we need to understand the historical context, which will take us back to when this really started, because it is always important for us to find solution of something. We need to see the root cause of the problem. So looking back and trying to look at where the problem really started, and amongst the first points that I'm going to talk about is the historical context. The colonial history of Latin America involved both the transatlantic slave trade and the subjugation of indigenous population. Indigenous population, we have black people who were already in the United States. So black people were already in different parts of Africa, and also the 15% of people from slave trade. The 15% is relatively higher when you try to look at the millions of people who were bought to the slave ships. If only 15% made it to the United States, this means that relatively, if we try to look at these, the 15%, they are very much number of people. So the colonial history of Latin America involved both transatlantic slave trade and the subjugation of indigenous populations. This created a complex social hierarchy where people of African descent were often marginalized. The remnants of this colonial structure still affect the social dynamics today. So understanding the historical context, people who the farms in Mexico, name it all, where the slave ships dropped, black people started working in these places. And when black people started working in these places, there was social hierarchy. We were people who were down, we were people who were black. People who were down included black people. Afro-Latinos were down in social hierarchy, because caste system was something which was really prevalent during these days. So the effects of colonialism still is inflicted in the minds of some Afro-Latinos, trying to look black people or trying to look as Afro-Latinos as lesser people. So this really dates it back, and those are one of the reasons of the struggles, the colonial problems, which are still affecting the Latino community. Remember, colonialism didn't just end. We still have neocolonialism, and noting it, these are one of the problems in which some Latinos are still perpetuating this caste system. So we try to date it back to historical context, when really these things happened. So to my second point, I'm going to talk about racial prejudice and colorism. I know this is where the creme de la creme is. Racial prejudice and colorism, and this is prevalent in the Latino community, the problem of colorism. And I've seen some parents advising their children to get married to white people or to get married to Latino and not Afro-Hispanics, because the Afro-Latinos are considered to be poor or will be looked down upon, or they are not beautiful. And the issue of colorism is prevalent, especially in media representation. And I hope that this is a topic that we really need to talk about. Some people raised a question. Look at the face of people who are represented in the media. Look at the face of those people, and you tell me if you are seeing the roles which are given to Latino people. If you look at the telenovelas, look at the these soaps opera, you'll see the roles in which black people are given and roles in which Latino themselves are being given. You get to understand where the issue of colorism really comes from. So with me, I'm gonna say within the Latino communities, there can be deeply ingrained colorism, and anti-blackness sentiments. Lighter skin is often privileged over darker skin, which can lead to discrimination against Afro-Latinos and black people. Isn't that true? That is true, and I support that this is true. Black people have been associated with beauty. People will offer you bleaching skin products for you to look, what they consider quote unquote beautiful. Little did they know that black is also beautiful, and it's something that people can actually embrace. To my third point, I'm going to talk about socioeconomic competition. Yes, socioeconomic competition. Black people and Hispanics are living like closely. They are neighbors. So any social development which is happening in the black community relatively will be known, not relative, but obviously will be known by Hispanic people. Now listen, in many areas, black Latino communities often lived in economically disadvantaged neighborhood and compete for the same jobs and resources. This can lead to tension and conflict over limited opportunities. This is a topic which was so much prevalent like 6 months ago, where you are seeing people in the United States complaining about the Latino community. And the majority of the community which was really affected was the black community, because these places were, these people were being bought into the black community. And within an area, when it comes to job opportunities, and even the Latinos who were in the black community or the black sphere only employed fellow Latinos. They never employed black people. So these struggles back and forth, amongst other things which were being observed, these are cause of the back and forth conflict, or the struggles, if I can say so, why this was really happening. The fourth one, which is so common, that I like to talk about, is cultural differences. Cultural differences. And in the cultural differences, I would like to talk about something. And this is really important. People hate black people, especially black Americans. But when it comes to black culture, everyone want to embrace black culture. From Afro, from keeping dreadlocks, from just name it all. Black people, they always set pace. But when it comes to themselves, they're being discriminated against. So you understand what the problem is. People will not want to associate with black people because that's according to caste system. But then they looking back, they're saying, oh, these people really have a good culture. I like the way they plait their hair. I like the way they do their dreadlocks. I like the way, hip hop, name it, African descent songs, reggae, just name it, So amongst other things, while both groups share some cultural similarities, especially which are taken from black people, there are distinct differences in language, traditions, and experience. These differences can sometimes lead to misunderstandings or lack of solidarity, which I agree with. To my fifth point that I'd like to talk about is media representation. And I think I've highlighted this in one of the things that I've talked about, or some of the things that I've touched while trying to talk about. I've talked about the representation of black people, especially in telenovelas. Look at the roles which black people are given, especially Afro-Hispanics or Afro-Latinos. Look at the roles which they're being given in those soap operas, and look at the roles which white or Latino people are being given. And then tell me. So media representation really plays a big role while talking about this. So I'm gonna just go ahead and just tell you what really is. Negative stereotypes perpetuated by media can exacerbate tension between these groups. Both black and Latino communities are often portrayed in negative lights, which can influence perception and interaction negative light the stereotypes that people usually give, and the caste system, which is being perpetuated by colonization, played a vital role in exacerbating this. To the sixth thing that I would like to talk about is political dynamics. Politically, there may be different priorities and strategies within the Black and Latino communities, which can lead to division. For example, issues such as immigration reform may be more prominent in Latino community, while police brutality and mass incarceration might be more urgent for Black communities. So you realize that priorities in agendas are kind of different. So there is that lack of unity to some point, you understand? So when this happens, it means that some group of people have priorities instead of other people. So these can lead to divided attention within the Latino community, especially between Afro-Hispanics and Hispanic people. The seventh thing that I would like to talk about, and this is so important, is identity struggles. Afro-Latino often face unique challenge as they navigate their identities. They may feel excluded or marginalized by both Black and Latino communities, leading to a sense of isolation and conflict. This is why knowing your genealogy is really important. I appreciate people who do their research trying to understand what's their genealogy. Are they indigenous to the United States, or are they people who came as enslaved, the adults, you know? So this is really important topic that we need to talk about, and I think I'll create a separate video to also try to address this issue, because I believe that it is important for people from the Black community. So guys, I hope that this video was really helpful. So if you happen to reach this point, I'll ask you to kindly subscribe to the channel, join our membership, and have to receive the fast packs as early access to our videos. Until then, this is your presenter Eugene Stories. Peace, love, and harmony. Salute.